Good day to everybody. I want to I want to read some interesting facts. This is important in my opinion. It got my attention. I'm not sure what it'll do for you, but I want to give you this information. Some of you may know it, some of you may not, some of you may care, some of you may not, but nevertheless, let's share. As it relates to, how do I want to say this, the progression of equality, especially as we compare it to races around the world. Predominantly, again, I know this may sound cliche, but my calling is towards my people. That is not to discriminate. That does not minimize any other race. As I've said before, and I sound like a broken record, I feel as if God has given me the urgency and the voice to raise the alarm, to be a watchman on the wall for my particular people, because that's where the greatest fire is. That is not to say that there is no other house that is on fire. There is no other house that is having problems. It is to say, in my opinion, that the African American community is plagued with a weightier degree as it relates to existential problems than the rest of the world, and in many cases almost combined. So we don't take issue with Paul being called to the Gentiles, Jesus being called to the Jews, that type of thing. Moses being called out of the water to deliver his people. We don't raise a brow when it comes to that, but some of us would be biased and take issue with me talking about my people and what I believe that God has called me to do with my purpose. If you are a follower of me, then you would know that I am a free-for-all, meaning that I do have a bias towards my people, but I have a bias towards the problem. But I give attention and I'm very non-biased in every other way. So I don't place one race or minimize one race over another race. I don't have a problem with white people, red people, green people, orange people. I don't have a problem with any of that. I do have a problem with treatment. And so with that being said, let me just read something to you. And you'll be able to note these citations as I go along. Educational disparities affecting Black people compared to other racial groups are a complex global issue with historical roots and contemporary manifestation. These disparities are evident in various aspects of education, including access, quality, attainment, and experiences within the educational system. From a global context, sub-Saharan Africa, the region has some of the lowest primary education attainment rates globally, with less than half of adults attaining a primary education in many countries. Sub-Saharan Africa also accounts for a significant proportion of out-of-school children and adolescents worldwide. Now, that is an alarming fact note to mention. Latin American and Caribbean African descendants in this region face unequal education opportunities, with higher dropout rates and lower completion rates at various educational levels. The United States, according to the Annie E. Casey Foundation, reports that students of color, including Black students, lag behind white peers in reading and math proficiency. We can nuance that a little bit, because a lot of that is because they move the needle a lot, and that is to keep separation. The UNCF notes Black students are more likely to be disciplined in school compared to their peers of other racial or ethnic groups. That's another place that can be nuanced, because there is a systemic problem that is perpetuated to keep Black people at a deficit. And one of the ways that they do that is they establish records of bad behavior at an early age. So then we get this stereotype as being very bad people, when in all actuality, a lot of that behavior it stems from our environment. It stems from a lack of resources and a lot of that stuff. United Kingdom, gov.uk indicates that Black people have made gains in higher education entry rates, but may still experience disparities in degree completion and attainment. Contributing factors: socioeconomic status. Black communities disproportionately experience poverty and lack of resources, leading to underfunded schools, limited access to quality early childhood education, and inadequate learning materials. And I would add to that, just not inadequate learning materials, but the proper learning materials, because a lot of those materials that they give to our people, our community, are materials that are, number one, it's the fallacy behind it. In other words, there's a lot of lies that's embedded in it. Number two, it's not useful information. Systemic racism. Racial biases in disciplinary practices, tracking, and curriculum development contributes to unequal educational opportunities for Black students. For example, Black students are more likely to face harsher disciplinary actions, including suspension and expulsion, which can disrupt their education. That is something that has been almost in perpetuity. Historical legacy. Colonialism, or when you colonize, it's colonialism here, but I want you to understand it, because some people may not know what colonialism is, but it's to be colonized. Colonization is to group everybody into a certain bucket or space and to culture you to behave and to think in a certain way. So colonialism and historical oppression have profoundly shaped education systems in many parts of the world, creating lasting inequalities that continue to impact Black communities. Lack of representation. A lack of Black teachers and culturally responsive curriculum materials can negatively impact Black students' sense of belonging and engagement in school. How do we address these disparities? Efforts to address these disparities include equitable funding. Distributing educational resources based on student needs can help create fair learning environments. Culturally responsive teaching, including diverse perspectives and materials in the curriculum, can improve student engagement and achievement. Anti-bias training. Training for educators can help reduce biases in interactions with students. That's an important one. Expanding early childhood education. Providing access to quality pre-kindergarten programs can improve long-term educational outcomes. In conclusion, educational disparities faced by Black people globally are linked to historical oppression and systemic inequalities. Addressing these issues requires comprehensive approaches focusing on areas like funding, equity, culturally relevant teaching, and anti-bias training to ensure quality education for all students. Now, that may not have hit you a certain way. It may not, it may not, I'm going to use a familiar word in my world, which is minister. It may not minister you to move you in a certain direction, but it certainly does me. I raise this point because of one of my observations that is a continued observation that I noticed as I, go about my days and as I see certain things, and even most recently in my travels, and that is that there is this dearth, there is a grave disparity amongst our children. And I've been harping on this issue of exposure. Exposure has two sides to it. One is an exposure for you to be enhanced, for you to be developed, for you to be creative, for you to be free. There's another exposure and that is to oppress. I have been a product of both sides, but what is most alarming to me right now is the fact that our children are not receiving the proper exposure, which I feel that is hindering them from an educational standpoint, and that is rendering us at this disparity or this deficit, if you will. I am going to continue to follow through with these types of little brief nuggets, these short tabletop, speeches, communications, if you will, to better inform us and to help us to get to a place of understanding, but most of all, get us to a place of motivation that would take us over the mountain and to eradicate, at least start the eradication process of getting beyond this disparity, this narrative that has been created with us. We can waddle and embrace the excuses of a lot of the things that we have been hit with, and that is the chains, the fetters that are on us. But ultimately, God has given us the wherewithal, the power to break the bonds, the shackles, and the chains of the oppressor. And it's up to us now, because God has built us differently, to withstand and to overcome things that most people cannot. And so we can get beyond the insurmountable. And so that's what my push is for. And my admonishment and encouragement is to get us to a place where we have not enjoyed. And I believe that God wants the best for us. And so the promised land is for everybody, not just for a few. And we need to understand more about what's standing in our way and how to overcome that. All right. So I'll stop for now, and we'll come back later and we'll continue our conversation. Until the next time, I want you to be blessed. I am Dr. Donnie Eatman. I'm the face of Face to Face. God bless you and shalom.